Oh, that was that.
Attached to the back of it or something.
Okay, maybe.
It's not over yet.
Necessarily not.
Be restrained.
How much am I missing?
Tomorrow, she got here Monday night. Yeah.
We get 3 signatures on all those.
Joe Lowe,
Yeah, Beth is actually getting.
how's it go?
That's what I'm saying, yes. Yeah. Me, you were mad.
Should have said to and fro.
Why don't you send it to her, just make sure this shows.
He's here because he needs to know. Because the public needs to know.
So that's why I just want to say,
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad Cornelius being here. I'm so glad Cornelius being here. That section is just treacherous.
Oh, what is it? Okay.
Counselor Ansel, do you need the gavel there?
No,
I have 2.
we got another minute.
Let me know if you need the gavel.
Nah,
Guys. Be rough crowd.
I don't know if they're going to be that out of order.
Do you know what the piece of wood that you hammer the gavel onto is called?
I bet you know.
I don't know. I'm like legitimately curious.
Don't they teach you that in law school or something? Judges use them all the
You
time.
would think so. They only teach you useless stuff in law school.
Wooden anvil.
Piece of wood that the gavel hits.
Okay, get started with the meeting of the City Infrastructure Committee. Roll call, please.
Counselor Insel,
Here.
Counselor McFarland,
Here.
Mayor Reed,
Wasn't
Counselor Armstrong.
Here.
Counselor Kelly,
Here?
Counselor Dowdle.
Here. Okay, thank you. At this point, take any comments from the public who happen to be present. You know, if your mom cares to comment, Colin, on your budget or the infrastructure.
No, you don't want her to comment.
Okay, seeing none. At this point, what I would like to do is, I'll entertain a motion. I would like to reverse the agenda a little bit and switch items 2 and 3, the order of items 2 and 3. I think it would be more productive, actually, to discuss the agenda items prior to going into the budget proceedings.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
And just indulge me at 5 for a very brief public hearing on the mayor's budget as required by our
Okay.
announcement 2 weeks ago.
That's at 5 o'clock, correct?
Yeah, it should only last 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, moving on. 3.1, request from Environmental Manager John Ruff for the approval of proposed Sandoval Engineering for the Mead Dam deformation analysis. Authorizes the execution of the agreement in the amount not to exceed $49,100. The source of the funds is from capital project H8320.68. John, if you want to address us.
Sure. So this is the first of 2 items for tonight that deal with the dams. We know that the dams need some improvements in order to be brought into compliance, especially when it comes to earthquake protection. This first item, the deformation analysis, will tell us more about how, to what extent the dam will deform if there's a major earthquake. We know something's going to happen, but we don't know what. So this will refine that, and we're going to look at it from a couple different perspectives. One is the reservoir totally full. How much deformation is there is going to cause a problem. If there's not much deformation, it doesn't cause a problem or a big problem, and we can reduce the anticipated improvements, we might decide that's satisfactory. If it looks like we can't reduce the extent of the improvements, then we'll be looking at, all right, if we reduce the reservoir pool level permanently, say down 5 feet, will that change the amount of deformation that occurs, and will it change the consequences? That might drop the cost of the improvements way down. So we're going to look at it from a number of perspectives to see what's really expected to happen using the model, so we can make some decisions based on that.
And what constitutes a major earthquake?
I don't know exactly on the Richter scale what it would be, but all those dams are in an active seismic area, so it is in an earthquake zone. There's some guideline that says, okay, you need to look at the deformation from either a particular maximum earthquake or a series of different types of earthquakes.
And the last earthquake I remember having in this area was what, 2002?
2002. It was up in that area, but we felt it all the way down.
There was another one just recently, though, I think just outside of Malone or Potsdam that had, I mean, it was a much smaller scale, but it was felt.
Yeah. So there is active seismicity out there.
And did that earthquake have an effect on the dams?
There was no noted structural deficiencies or anything like that. So, I mean, there was more damage from some of the hurricanes that came through and the amount of water flow, but not from that earthquake. So, I don't know how that earthquake rates in comparison to the design earthquake that they have to, but I can look into that if you want.
Just curious.
Can you tell us in layman's terms how they simulate an earthquake?
No.
Okay.
Can you do it now in scientific terms then?
They have some kind of model that they're gonna run.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
Can we be there?
What's that?
Can we watch?
Oh, no, it's a model they're gonna do on the computer.
Oh, on
Yeah,
a
you can probably,
computer,
yeah,
oh, okay.
So
probably
they'll
tape it.
feed some data in about the dam and
About the dam,
Feed some
about
data.
the geotechnical information they have, the soil types, the water level, saturation in soils, the size of the earthquake, I know that. There might be a lot of other things that go into it too. I'm looking forward to learning more about this.
oh, good.
We're in kind of uncharted waters here.
Will you report back to us if you find anything interesting?
Yeah?
Okay. Thanks, John.
And capital project HA 320.68. I see the next item requires that as well.
Correct.
How much money is in that capital project?
There is $78,432. So if you sum these two projects, it's more than the amount of money that's in the
Yeah.
capital project. I think Rich had hoped to have a capital project, an additional appropriation on this week, didn't work out, so it's going to be on next week. I asked him to put another $50,000 in the project, because right now we're about $26,000 short. Put 50 in, we'll have a little money around for some miscellaneous things that may arise. So we'll have to come back and keep revising the capital project.
Okay.
So.
It's in a way that won't affect the general fund, though.
Correct. Oh, yeah, and it should be noted that that $50,000 will come out of the water reserve, the special part of the reserve that's specifically designated for Mead Dam improvements. We've got an infrastructure investment charge on the water bills that collect money each month in anticipation of doing a big project later on. So we've been using that money to do these studies and all that. So it doesn't affect the general fund, it doesn't affect the water rates at this point in time or anything like that, so.
And both these items are part of your more elaborate strategy too, of not only dam management, but water management in general, something you've been working really hard on for the last year or so.
Correct.
So it's becoming a little more complicated than before, but necessarily so because it's a bigger part of a much bigger water strategy.
Right, so that next item, if you want to slide into that, is a safe yield analysis. Basically, it's going to look at the two watersheds that feed Westbrook and Mead dams. They're separate watersheds, so basically two separate sources of water. And it's going to look at, all right, how much water can we expect to have during whatever the design drought year is? What's going to happen to the reservoir levels, and how many days of storage are we going to have at present usage rates before we start to run into trouble.
And Schnabel Engineering, I hope I pronounced
Schnabel.
that. Schnabel. Where is it? they contracted through a bid, or?
Yeah, it was through a competitive professional service procurement. There was an RFP that was put out. Firms were ranked based on their experience and who's top ranked, and then from there you can negotiate a price. So we went through a series of discussion about what the scope of work is for both of these contracts, what level of effort there is, and to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck. From the perspective of the review committee, we're ranked by far the most qualified and the best to do the work. So, and they've actually, they started about 5 years ago. A couple of guys broke off from another company, started a little two-person office, a local Schnabel office. Schnabel's countrywide. Started a two-person office, and they're up to like 10 or 12 people because everybody is hiring them to do the work because they've done such good work. So,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Any further questions for John? Thank you, John. Okay, item 3.3, request from the City of Plattsburgh Department of Public Works to close Cornelia Street to all through traffic from Beekman Street to St. Charles Street during both the milling and resurfacing portions of Cornelia Street resurfacing project. Eastbound traffic will be redirected south on Beekman Street to Broad, east on Broad to Oak Street, then north to Oak Street to Cornelia. Westbound traffic will be directed north onto Oak Street to Bailey Avenue, west on Bailey to Beekman, and south on Beekman to Cornelia Street. Mike and Mike, I guess my question for you is, obviously we can't pinpoint an exact date because this is weather contingent.
It's weather contingent, it's also, we're trying to coordinate with other paving projects. Obviously, we're working on Veterans Lane currently, doing sub-base work. We'll bring the paving contractor back in, minimize mobilization, so if we have several jobs lined up consecutively, we save on the mobilization costs.
Okay. Because of the uncertainty with the project date, I was going to say a
We'll have a
window.
window of about a week. Once I know where we're at with Veterans Lane, we're finishing up the sub-base work. Probably 3 days next week, we should be to the point where we're prepared to line up the milling and paving. At that time, I will schedule and give ample time. We'll post it, media outlets, website, provide maps.
Since it is a major thoroughfare, it's going to be.
And we have the good weather.
Yeah.
And that, you know, the rollovers, we might as well talk about item 4, because item 4 is much the same. Now, that's
an addition, isn't it?
that is an addition. If things track well, cost-wise, and we might try to do from the crossing, which they just redid at Boynton, down to GP. There's a seam, there's a section there, and then also back towards Veterans Lane. That will depend on how the numbers are running, but currently I think we might be able to squeeze that one there also.
Which would kind of make that entire section from the track, just by the tracks down where they just resurfaced and did the area over that crossing, railroad crossing.
Yeah, that was done nicely, by the way.
Correct. That's the end goal. We'll see where the numbers fall, but I think we're trying to make it up.
Do you have a price on what that would be, number 4?
That one I do not for the Boynton Avenue section, but we have budget pricing in for veterans and
Cornelia, right. Yeah. I just didn't know if you had an idea of what.
I'm going to work on that probably tomorrow or beginning next week.
And I imagine you plan on doing Boynton before Cornelia, right, when you're done Veterans Lane?
No, we're actually going to do, it's easy to get the equipment through town. I mean, they honestly can drive, because the locations are so centrally located, whether it's the milling machine or the paving equipment, they can drive. They don't need to even put it back on trucks. So they'll do, the goal will be probably veterans first, and then Cornelia. And Cornelia, the goal with Cornelia is to get in and out quickly. Obviously, it can inconvenience a lot of people. As we've seen with Broad Street and with South Brewer Street, it's very, very hard to do it without making someone upset. There's always going to be someone that's going to be angry about this. So the best way I know how is to make sure that we're just really prepared to get in and out as fast as possible. So,
Plus, you wouldn't be able to. You don't know if you can do Boynton until you finish Cornelia too, because of the
I'll
cost.
have a good idea after veterans where I am quantitatively.
That's what the traffic flows. Really, take a ride around in the cars and watch the flow of traffic on Canadian Street.
Broad Street at a certain time of the day.
Productivity of both the milling crew and paving crew is dictated by just that. If without the traffic, without having to fight the traffic, the faster we can go. Broad Street went extremely well because we had so many lanes. South Peru Street was tough. You would think just the opposite, being Broad Street so busy, but we could channelize traffic and jump the equipment around. And that went better than expected.
And college is back in business.
Any addition?
There was some question before Cornelia Street was gonna be done, excuse me, that there needed to be, I don't know if it was bore testing or testing of infrastructure before we decided if we would move ahead with Cornelia.
We have done assessment of drainage structures and manholes. We've made the appropriate repairs. We actually, there was Verizon had a couple manholes in Willow Street. We had to complain about the additional legwork, replacement, fix their inverts. We do have some aging water lines in that area, but we've decided we want to move forward with this one.
Okay, and at some points, presently, the curbing is just about level with the pavement. Either one's going up or one's coming down, or they're meeting. Is that going to expose more curbing once we,
No, because we're gonna put back what we take out.
at the same height?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll probably take out between 2 and 2¼ inches, and then we'll go back in about the same depth.
Okay. And that's enough to accommodate water flow and drain,
Yes.
obviously?
I mean, you're gonna have, it's not a perfect road.
Okay.
Short of doing full depth reconstruction.
Right.
And then, major drain, you might even have to add in the storm drainage system. The goal is to make it perform as it was originally designed, okay? That's hard to do when some of the curb is deteriorated substantially, but we definitely can extend the life of that out for an acceptable period of time.
It's a lot of the parking, I've noticed people kind of park over the curb throughout that traffic area. Will that prevent that now? The curbing, apparently it sounds like it's not going to change that much.
It won't change that.
Okay.
The only thing it prevents.
Not that I'm
the only
advocating
thing it
for
prevents
those.
that is enforcement,
Okay,
okay?
all right,
How's that?
good.
Any additional questions?
If weather is good, how long do you plan on?
1 day and 1 day, so 2 days total. Correct, but,
With Cornelia Street?
yeah, that's the goal.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Item 5, request from Plattsburgh Farmers Market to block off additional 10 parking spaces for the Harvest Day on September 29th, 2018. Requesting to be allowed to block off spaces from Thursday, September 27th through Saturday, the 29th.
No problem with that.
You have no, okay. I guess my concern though is having parking, the additional spots blocked off on Thursday and Friday. So essentially you're blocking spots off for 3 days.
Yeah, normally we block off down that way down by the river, that one stretch right there. We have to go out.
Okay.
We have a picture.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't know if that was going to create additional parking problems for those days.
I don't see it.
Okay. Any other discussion on item 5? Item 6, request from Director of Community Development Matthew Miller for permission to advertise for bids for contract number 2018-05 painted pavement markings. Matt?
It's actually for public work.
It's for Public Works, okay.
I'm sure you told us, but what, where, what, and why?
We do 2 types of paving, or painting in the city. We do mainline painting,
Oh.
which actually has been performed, I say performed, 90% of it. We're about 150,000 linear feet has been done as of Monday. We got about 30,000 more feet to do.
Okay.
The county does that with the hotline truck, they call it. That's the one that drives down the road and then everyone drives across the street. Yeah. These pavement markings are
Kind of like broad on
crosswalk.
the turn this off.
These pavement markings are crosswalks,
Okay.
arrows, bicycle symbols, railroad crossings, and their unit prices.
Very good.
Whereabouts are you?
citywide, okay, and what they'll do is, it's a unit price bid, so they'll bid units and we'll see what the numbers come back in as. Most likely we'll receive only one bid, because only one contractor in the area, it's not even in the area, it's I think it's out of Rochester, it's like Straight Line. Straight Line does it, but Straight Line also does all the airports, they're subsidiaries, so epoxy painting is kind of a specialty. So we'll get it, verify the units, and make sure they're consistent with previous years, and then identify how much we want to do.
If you ride around the city with your vehicles and check the city out, you'll see a lot of crosswalks are fading. That's what we're gonna bring back.
You're gonna add in any new crosswalks?
No. Just do what's existing.
Any additional questions? Okay, thanks, Mike. Moving on, final 3.7, request from Police Chief Ritter for one police department employee to attend 2018 Impact User Training Conference from September 17th, the 18th, 2018 in Saratoga, New York. Total cost should not exceed $457.61 and will be expensed out of the asset forfeiture fund. I don't quite know why this is on the infrastructure.
It's the date. They just sent it to me and it
Oh,
has to be
okay.
done because of the date.
Date, yeah, it needs to,
17th,
because it's this
yep.
week, and expediency. Any,
Same could have been said for farmer's market, so, I mean,
yeah,
it's just
sure.
the timeliness of it all.
Sure. Questions, concerns? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to move items 3.1 through 3.7 onto our regular meeting agenda to
So
follow.
moved.
So we have a motion, a second, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on. Old business. Seeing none. New business. Seeing none. I'm going to move back now on to item 2.2.
And talk about the budget for 10 minutes.
Well, then, for five, and then with a 5-minute break, then we can resume for the rest of the organizational meeting unless there's need for executive session or.
We need a short executive session to discuss some
We will?
individuals.
Okay. Again, this is just the initial beginning of the budget process. I highly doubt that we will be able to get through each of the various departments tonight. So there will be certainly, I believe, a need to continue our discussions. But I'd like to start off just basically going in order of the way they are presented in the mayor's budget. And I believe Public Works might be the first to come, and that is on page 11 of the budget. And Beth has graciously been able to pull just the, from the mayor's budget and bring up the various areas that concern infrastructure. So Mike, I don't know if you'll be able to man that for us. And it does begin on page 11 of the mayor's budget
Bingo inspector.
with, below the bingo inspector, street administration. I guess in looking overall at the budget with regarding street administration, there is a projected decrease of 2.3% with pay and so, and it certainly the increase of 7.8% is negotiated salary increases. Overtime is essentially the same as was projected. Although, could you explain to me possibly what the non-pay comment is on there? There's nothing under there, but yet, for 2018, there's $1,100 in there. It would be item,
And that's temporary pay.
that's temporary? Okay.
No.
No.
Non-pay is the next one below it. Is
Okay.
that an employee healthcare buyout?
No, that's actually the line that we had that Rich.
Well, you said it was 11,000, that's why.
It'd be line 1400.
I'll have to look at that. Usually it's sick leave buyout.
Yeah,
See
2,500, yeah.
there.
Okay.
Could be posted incorrectly. Could be that it's healthcare buyout.
But it's projected as zero for
It's yeah,
19.
right.
Yep, there's no budget for it.
Yeah.
No budget for it, but in this past year, it's projected at 1,100 for this
Yep.
for the current year.
Well, it's actually 110274.
Right.
Projected 1103 because, they're like the same number.
Mm.
So I gotta find out what that is. It could be a healthcare buyout.
It's health insurance buyout, I haven't
Right.
had a budget.
Health insurance buyout?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So why would that, we don't,
I just think the line item was put in there, we never removed it or funded it, or we were waiting to fund it. I don't know. I don't know either. But it's funding. Someone comes along and, doesn't take healthcare and gets a buyout.
Yeah,
Might
I think
switch
it's
that
just,
from
I think it's
someone
just that,
else.
we have to put it somewhere.
okay.
I don't see that.
I'll find out who it's
Because
from.
there's the non-pay.
It's line
right?
1400.
What
1400.
$11,000 is he referring to? Yeah, that's what
The
I
actual
thought.
So it's
Okay.
gonna recur, that should have a budget.
And in looking also one line below it, at 1,500, we see nothing budgeted for separation pay. We don't anticipate or,
You'd be funding that out of other budgets like water and sewer. We took it out of the general fund
okay, for this coming year.
this coming year.
So I guess my question is, what if my understanding is that your budget, you have water and sewer in different areas. What if the separation doesn't come out of, let's say it's just a laborer that isn't part of you're still taking the money from the water and sewer?
Yeah, we funded money for those separation payouts in water, sewer, and general fund.
Okay.
I see for the next item after there for printing and copying, you up the budget for that to more accurately reflect what it's actually being spent, I presume? Because last year was underfunded, budgeted 285, all the way up to 1,300 so far, so requesting 2,000 for next year. Seems wise.
And the same thing with postage. And the numbers requested,
Don't forget, we take different things on different budgets. We might take postage out of water and sewer, postage out of general fund. It's all how it's billed and paid out, what fund is paid out. So if you go through this budget, you'll see different line items on different, like water, sewer, for postage.
okay. Street maintenance, moving down, item 1,200, under street maintenance. Overtime, I see a significant cut in your overtime budget.
That's for snow and ice. It's a,
That's regular.
No, that's street maintenance.
okay, so it's,
Next item down.
it's a $10,000.
$10,000 from the original. It's about a $2,500.
No, it's under snow and ice.
Under PW
Regular
street
pay,
maintenance?
And then overtime pay
Give
is
the-
down
give the
10,000.
thingy.
So snow and ice,
Right here.
Both snow and ice and street maintenance lines did, we reduced the overtime pay. If you look at what's up there, there's a 24% drop in
Right.
pay.
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I got a
But it
little
looks like
ahead
you're
of
gonna
it.
Yeah, you
come
got ahead
under
of it.
that
Okay,
this year,
okay.
the actual.
So,
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's in the, I'm looking at the street maintenance one, snow and ice. section.
So I guess my question is, would some of that overtime from this year for maintenance, because it's not snow and ice, would that be overtime that may have been incurred with some of the paving projects and things?
A little bit of paving, believe it or not, usually we try to end, we hire off-county contract at the end of an 8-hour day. You get into a premium wage situation when you get those guys from out of town coming in and doing that, it's rather costly, so. Their cost is a lot compared to a little bit over time, but I don't think on these projects we've done, we might have 1 or 2 hours over just to finish up.
really,
section.
okay.
But I guess my question for you is, do you feel comfortable with the budgeted $10,000 that it's adequately funded with the decrease from the 2018 budget?
What's that?
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
If anybody has any other questions about any of the other items.
Yeah, we're running
going
up on
through.
5.
Yeah, please stop me. And then just moving down to the next for snow and ice. Again, we're looking at the overtime with about, well, a $10,000 cut in overtime for snow and ice.
Yeah, how do you arrive at that? How do you calculate that and predict that?
Based on the prior
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. So even though we had a pretty hefty snow season, huh? Okay.
There's only 1 month left in 2018 to fund for snow and ice overtime.
Yeah,
Mhm.
December.
right.
There's-
That's
there's
true.
a- There's a couple factors that play into that too. We do run a night crew in the winter, so that cuts down on overtime. But the crew, many times will have to supplement it by calling in an additional plow driver if we do have a snow event in the evening. The other thing is downtown cleanup. Whenever we have to clean up downtown, we're talking about a substantial overtime event. And again, it's all about coordinating it and getting it maximum efficiency out of it. You'll see a lot of equipment, a lot of trucks out there to try to get done quickly. For a couple of reasons, let's save on the overtime, but also to get downtown businesses back open. We've been very fortunate. Last year we only had like 1.5 downtown cleanups. It was a pretty easy year.
Well, if I hear what you said, it's you know, it's a kind of a choreography you have to do. It's organizing really well so that you can avoid those overtime
Correct, but there are
events.
those times where guys will work 16 hours straight, and we have to send them home.
Yeah.
We've had some good years, but sometimes it's really tough.
And also when the snow event happens, it happens on a weekend.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Now, before we step on, I know we have to pause momentarily for public, but you're comfortable with the budget, the overtime budget for fire and ice as it stands, or with the $10,000 cut?
Fire.
Fire and ice.
Yeah,
Or fire and ice,
You
not
talking about
ice,
the
fire and
Game of
ice.
Thrones or what?
We're not, we're not weathermen and.
Yeah,
we can't predict
right,
weather,
right.
So
Right.
we're comfortable with the numbers we put in.
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. At this,
I might
Point
add
of-
too, just as we close and move into brief hearing, we did an awful lot of discussion on sand and salt for the upcoming year.
that was, I was going to bring up.
And we know sand and salt prices have gone up. It's my goal to use this current 2018 budget, anything that might be left over, to give them the inventory back that's been declining. So in 2019 budget, we're only worried about maintenance of that inventory rather than trying to build it up. And so I've assured them we'll do whatever we can budgetarily to make sure they get that inventory back up before the end of 2018.
Right.
And that allowed them to come up with a relatively conservative estimate of sand and salt for next year. Is that a safe recap?
Yes, very good.
Okay. Go.
So just very briefly, I'd like to move into a public hearing today to consider the public hearing to hear public comment on the mayor's proposed 2019 budget for the city of Plattsburgh. If you would like to come in, please discuss the proposed budget. Please come forward and we'll take your name and address for records as well. Going once. Going twice. Done. Please continue.
Where were we? Thank you. Actually, you touched on where I was about to go next, and that is in regard to salt and sand supplies. I don't know, Mayor, if you can maybe, it took me, I didn't quite comprehend what it was you were saying, and where our, I believe our current supply for 2018 is below, it's low, if I, or?
What we have on hand is, I think we have in the neighborhood of between 300 and 400 ton. Normally rolling into November, we would have on hand 850 to 900 ton on hand. That's distributed between DOT and storage. So we ran about over, actually 25% over our allotments last year. You're allowed 20, they actually gave us 25%. And then we had a visit with the mayor and they warned us they were going to cut some. So we spoke with the mayor and advised the situation. Fortunately, we did not have to go to alternate sources to pay a premium for salt. But we were short for where we really are.
So last year, we actually did have to purchase more than,
Yeah, they allow 120% of what you asked for. So if we ask for 1,800 ton, they'll give us an extra 20% off. And then after that, if the price is not held, then it's open market.
so I guess my concern is that we are a little bit short going in at the end, and that's where you said, Mayor, that you would do what you can to bring it up to the level.
That's right. So they're not trying to replenish their inventory next year, just maintain it, but not trying to bring it up to where it ought to have been in the first place. Correct.
Any other questions?
I do. If we could go back up to 1,100, the 7.8 of regular pay increase is based on what?
Up on top, the
Right
first,
at the
the
right at
first
the first
line.
item.
The first
Street
line,
administration, line 1,100, regular pay is up
10,000.
7.8.
There's a $10,000 increase.
Or 7.8, yep.
You scroll down.
Yep. Right.
Right
Yep.
there. Yep.
Is that where you put half of the engineering aid?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Half of the engineering aid went there.
Okay.
It's allocated in amongst these accounts, but that's driving that for the most part. In addition to increases we know have to happen based on longevity changes.
Right. That was my next question.
There's nothing in there for projected contract increases based on negotiations.
Okay. And the longevity is now built into the regular payroll.
No, this is union personnel.
Okay. So if it's half of the engineering aid, is that the full 10,000 then, is half?
Well,
Or
it's
a third?
distributed also with water and sewer. And
Right, so it's a third and a third, it's,
Some in water, some in sewer, some in street administration, some in street maintenance. I think
okay, so
You
it's,
guys all that.
And the other half in community development.
CDS
Yep.
has half of
what is it?
Community development is half
that also.
Half that.
It's a shared position.
I think CD has 29, and you
Yeah,
guys have taken the
29.
29 and allocated amongst all your different payroll accounts.
So community development has 29 and a half
29,000 towards
thousand.
engineering aid.
20,
Half
okay.
is solid, the engineering aid.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving down further, street lighting. See a 5.3% increase.
That's just based on a projection for the cost that MLD has projected for the street lighting during the term of the city.
And Bill Tracy wasn't able to be here tonight, he's traveling, but he did offer to come and speak to your various committees at a future date on that.
Okay. I guess my question for the mics is, are there some areas of the budget, there's some, I guess, things that you feel that might need to be included, or money in certain places that, I understand that you've gone through and.
I sent you this in an email.
Mhm.
Not just from the mayor.
Mhm.
This list was added, things we'd like to have in money to.
Okay. And I saw one of them was the salt and sand.
Yes, we want to increase 2,250 tons to 2,500 tons.
We actually made a compromise during the budgeting process, we went back and forth, and 2,500 is a substantially larger amount than the originally. Normally, we average between 1,600 and 1,800 tons, depending on what we keep on hand, but based on the stocks that we had, 2,500 was an appropriate, but we had some really large amount, trying to play.
Why don't we go through this little list?
Right, sure.
And talk to us about it.
Okay.
The second item was a reminder for an arborist for large trees, $50,000. Because we're always getting hit with trees that need to be cut down, stump's gotta be grinded, they're tall trees, big old trees, and it's $5,000 a tree. And we have a lot of trees in the city of Plattsburgh, I explained it to the mayor. So MLD has their trees that involve their electrical system, and they'll work on those. But then we have trees all through the city, there's no wires or anything around. So we're asking, because we don't have the equipment to go up and cut those
Right,
trees.
okay, so that was my next question. It's not for the hiring of an arborist?
No,
For
it's
the-
all
It would be for
service.
services, contract services.
Because we paid Arbor Ops, I believe, almost $9,000 to take the trees down in front of the apartments to the left of the gym.
Yes.
Was that the only expense during that year with Arbor Ops?
No, there's
Or
another
whether,
tree-
it's the only one I
there's
recall.
There's not a tree on the other end of the oval, remember? But
Because they're huge. I mean,
And we spent a substantial amount of public works time picking up after that.
yeah, we get all the trees, we'll move out of there, our trucks.
So that's like the average rate, $5,000 a tree?
Well, if you average it out,
Right.
some trees are, could be a $2,000 tree, but we have the inventory of trees in the city of Plattsburgh, we have a lot of old trees.
Yes, yes.
And what else all there?
And I think the recent weather trends brought the attention to a lot of those trees and concerns, the damage that we've had.
But so I just asked for a line item to put in the budget, so we, the trees are a real problem, we can go after. $50,000, I think, maybe, right, I hope.
Yeah.
hoping.
I mean, you kind of inventory the trees, so you're estimating based on what you see might need to be come down.
Right.
Okay.
And we can't afford to go after all these trees at one time, but if we, year in, year out, if we identify the trouble trees and start picking away at it, it's not to say we're gonna spend $50,000 a year.
Right.
We might only spend $5,000,
Right.
but we have to have something to go. I mean, I can go out right now and give you 10 trees at $5,000 a piece that need to come down.
Is this the first time you've made a request of this nature?
Of this nature, what about trees?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. So previously, we've just
I don't know
Build
where
it.
they got, I don't know if it was through MLD or what.
okay.
Now, we budgeted 28,000
Where
in
was that?
2018.
I think was that for new trees though, or the tree
Yeah,
replacement?
that's-
Tree replacement?
I don't think so, because we used to budget about 11,000 for new trees, planting every year. 28,000 was in anticipation of having to do some.
What
That was
page?
an arbitrary number that.
Where is that, Richard?
Yeah,
Page 15. At the top, which is the second piece of the parts of beautification budget. Pretty consistent with what the actual cost was in 2017.
Oh, that's the contract?
Arbor Ops.
That's contracted services?
Yes.
Okay.
So now they've only budgeted 14,000
14.
this year, but they think that that's low for what they think that's going to be.
Right.
Correct.
Okay,
So you're
So it
asking for
was-
50 there.
So actual so far this year, though, we have done the 28,000.
I think that was an encumbrance was put in there, it's not an actual charge. I'll take a look at that. But the 29,599 last year, 2017, was actual cost.
On that line item, why is there no percent change if it's being cut in half?
I think the original budget is 0, and that's what the 14,000 is measured against.
Oh, okay.
And the system can't figure out what 14,000 increase over 0 is, so it's put 0 in.
Okay.
Sorry. One thing I wanted to mention also, if you could go back up to page 3 of the news report, Councilor Kelly.
I don't know if that's on there. I think that might just be, oh, it is. I thought Beth
8
just
lines
did.
from the bottom, I just want to let you know that the impact of that 227,148 is totally offset by the revenue.
We don't have.
We don't have that. We just had the, Beth just
Starting at page 11.
gleaned the.
But tell us about it.
The
So-
item on page 11 that,
Yes.
Councilor Renzo was worried about going up 5.3% is totally offset by revenue on page 3 of the mayor's budget.
Mhm.
227,148, same number. So whatever we budget for the cost, we also budget for the revenue on that, so it has no impact on the mayor's budget or the council's budget.
Budget. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. So I guess then going back to page 15 with the contracted services. That amount is being projected to be cut in half. But according to Richard, you don't know if that money has been spent, it's just been encumbered, if that is the actual amount that's,
Yeah, I'll have to look that 28 up and see if that's just a deal that's been ready to anticipate some work.
okay.
It just looks too easy that it's even 28,000 actually.
Right.
Versus 28,000 budget, so indicates that there's an encumbrance out there that's taking up the entire amount. I'll see what the actual spending is and let you know.
And Bill couldn't be here tonight, but we employ in the MLD 2 arborists. I believe that there's got to be some room for collaboration between MLD and meeting some of your needs. You are correct in that some of your projects aren't around power lines, but they do have skilled people that we need to be fully employed. So let's explore and have a discussion with them as well.
But I think though, wasn't it that there, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, that some of the trees, the MLD equipment was not able to or sufficient enough to take down
At times,
some of
yeah.
those trees.
That's right. So there's always some
Right,
conflict. Yeah.
right.
They don't want to deal with big trees on the oval.
No.
Right. But I agree with you, Mayor, that it makes perfect sense to have, when you have two departments within the same city, that, to have some
I mean,
collaboration.
In reality, Public Works should not be following any trees in the city. We're not really insured to do that.
Well, I was,
Nor are we geared up, or we geared up. And we have guys that are experienced with saw, but I don't want to
Right,
chop the trees.
right,
down.
yes. Yes. So the request then is for 50,000.
Well,
On-
if there's money in there, Richard has money in there, we'll just want to up it to 50,000.
So,
Up it
so
to
it's
50,000 total.
Total.
So it would be, it could be technically a $22,000 increase.
Right.
This past year, we've gotten called out at least a half
Yeah,
a dozen
36,000.
It would
times.
be 36 on the.
Oh, 36, but 22 from the current budget.
Oh, yeah. Instead of a 50% decrease, yeah.
We've been called out at least a half dozen times to look at trees in this past year, maybe probably more, probably a dozen times. And we don't have a mechanism to address them. You know, they're not the woman in the wires that Bill Tracy goes into. And we end up in a quandary of how to,
Right.
take care of them.
Right.
And we have a lot of them upset.
Yeah, timeliness is everything, you know, with trees. Take care of it as soon as you can.
I know another one of you, from your email, you mentioned a manager that an office manager is...
Well, yeah, but I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Next thing is my little beef. See that what this council was interested in, how you, the press and all that stuff about straws and all that bullshit. I want refuge
excuse
for
me?
additional funding for roadside maintenance, and what I'm talking about, the couches, the sofas, the
Totally
TV
unnecessary,
sets,
Mr.
the
Brody.
the electronic equipment that they leave on the side of a curb. People drop them off in their cars, they leave them on street corners. I need some additional revenue to handle that because it costs $27 for a TV set when I want to dispose of it. And if it's got Freon in it, it costs more. So that's the real issue with me.
And
Okay?
somewhat related
Because
to that, I spoke with Joe McMahon today. We've been working this out with our police chief. We need to be much more proactive in enforcement, so people have a clear signal that it's not satisfactory to be leaving these things on the side of the road. I think you've all received complaints from your constituents over that. So we plan to do much more proactive code enforcement on that. And we know it's going to be tough at first, but we're going to take that very, very seriously.
Let me ask you, Mike, in what part of the budget would that increase?
That'd probably come out of the refuge budget.
Okay.
And the dollar figure there is?
There, yeah, that was...
Is that your?
Well, I didn't actually put a dollar figure on that. I'd say maybe 5,000 to 7,000
Increase?
increase.
But
For
just
the
like
removal,
tree,
though,
there
we
needs to be a
should-
mechanism to take care of these additional costs. We just, for years and years, we just absorbed it.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
people are very savvy. They'll leave a TV set on a
Right.
street corner. You know, I mean, I caught someone on a Sunday dumping a love seat over at Wilcox Dock and going through the city, and I looked back around. Fortunately, I wasn't able to catch them. They threw it back in the pickup truck and took off. But that's the kind of thing we face, and then it sits there in a corner, and someone has to pick it up and someone has to pay for it.
Is there any recovery on that? There isn't.
Well, if the person owns a TV set and they put it out and they call us up, we charge them with the
Right.
landfill charges.
But if, say, somebody vacates a rental property, they leave, does it go on the owner of the building?
The owner, yes.
It does?
Well, we try to do.
But there's always an argument there, because they'll say that, well, the neighbor did it, or someone drove by and dumped it on the front of my house.
Right.
And so that's what we're referring to. We can have revenue to offset these costs if we have better code enforcement. We may need even code changes to make it very clear that if it's on your property and it was your tenant, not the owner, still the owner's gonna have to bear the responsibility for it. And if it was your neighbor, then that becomes a police action. Why was the neighbor trespassing on your property and dumping refuse on city property? So we're gonna get much more serious about that.
Okay, thank you. You're next.
Well, I'll let Mike talk to this. We need engineering contracted services. We want to put $50,000 in for all the little things that we actually need an engineering firm to stamp or look at before we have to do them. Because we're not qualified to do that kind of work.
And again, it's an arbitrary allowance. It might be something that we use once a year, or it might use the whole allowance. Depending on what we face, and you know, we're pretty resourceful in-house. I think you guys have seen that. But there's some things that are just beyond us.
Could you give an example? What you might be expected to do now, but you cannot do?
Well, for instance, a minor intersection where we have to train or change crosswalks or curb cuts, and requires, you know, we could probably take it, you know, 70% of the way where we get it drawn up, and we need an engineer to review and stamp, and take it the rest of the way.
Is ADA compliance, does that come into play on this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In the past, there has been a budget for, we've always contracted out to get some of these stamps done. And it is partitioned based on the general fund and other funds as well. But we should have some sort of room for that with contracted services.
Can you
Well, I mean,
tell
the
us
gist
where in
of
the
it-
budget that would go, Mike, and what budget that would be placed in?
Where would you like to see it, Rich?
Huh?
Where would you suggest? I mean,
Yeah.
probably spread it out between 3 funds, administrative costs. water.
Administrative or contracted services?
Well, the contracted services line under administrative, something of that nature.
I'm just making notes here so that we can discuss these things at a
Right,
later time.
right.
So I want to get as much.
Well, that was my purpose tonight, was to get everything kind of out on the table and then we can.
Okay, you do it, you know, you go 1/3 water, sewer, general fund.
Okay.
But you might want to consider, you know, your infrastructure division, what departments does that include? And allocate it to all of them, because they're all going to need that service.
Okay.
Yep. Just a thought. Next item is we want to put a draft person back on DPW in the budget. Another person to help, we lost a person, retired, so we wanted to fill that position. For all the projects and jobs we do around the city.
And it is a training position.
It is a training position.
I mean, everyone likes Andrew and found him very helpful. But you just don't find Andrew on a tree. So we need to get someone in place that he can work with and get to the level that we need.
How much do you
And
want
what
to
would,
pay?
yeah,
It's $45,000.
How long is this
with
position?
benefits
It's a
and,
union position.
And how long has this been open? Been open 2 years?
About.
And,
Now, does
Okay.
45 include benefits, or should we add that in
I
also?
think you should add that.
Okay, so another 25%.
Payroll burden, yes, I know.
More than 25.
so you're probably looking at about another 15,000,
45? Okay.
45?
Well, let's just also clarify that that DPW is taking on more work. I mean, you know, you lost that position and you didn't have the workload you currently have. So there's the justification. You're trying to cover your normal workload and what's been piled on you in addition to that. So I think, you know, I'm receptive to your argument.
Thank you. And I want to give you a little something that our day-to-day work, we don't do it every day. These are some of the things that we have to do as a water, sewer, public works department. And this is other guys put through their time sheets and use the numbers. You can look at the little jobs that we do that aren't so little sometimes. They are very, very, very time-serving and people, professionals.
Yeah.
Did you get one, Mike?
I was really wondering, this was the kind of reporting that I would hope you would supply us, because we don't really know how to account for everything you do, and we want to be able for you to operate.
This will give you an example of what we do. Things we do, they're during the year. You know, it's like replace the curb stop, you know, water shut off, it breaks, and it's on our side, but you have to replace the curb stop. We have fire hydrant repair. You can go through and you see a mountain of things that we actually are responsible for and do every year.
There are programs that have to be done every year, and there are programs that we skip, but they can go biannually. And for instance, this year we're keying heavily on trying to do some road work and participate at a greater level. That's taken away from doing other activities on this list. But we're gonna eventually have to stop the road work bonanza here and get back to basics.
You're currently, though, in charge of the parks too, right?
Yes.
Well, so, I mean, where's that? Did you even put that in?
It's on the back.
It should be a closeout.
It's under downstate.
Okay.
It is downstate record. There's gutters, leaves, pruning, planting, snow removal. We've gone through it, that's what guys do, so put on their time sheets and they do those jobs.
The various other parts to recreation.
Oh, there? Oh,
think
I guess I should have
the
noticed
budget
that,
that's, page
13. I think it starts on page 12.
Yes, on the bottom of page 12 into 13, Recreation Administration.
Yeah.
Down, well, technically 13 because there's nothing on administration. Any questions for Mike?
Is there anything
regarding
else
this
in your
yet?
list, Mike?
Hold on. Counselor Dowdle had a question.
The request for a draft person, what about the engineering aid? You had the engineering, was that in lieu of a
We've been
draft
around
person?
looking for maybe a candidate or somebody, had a list, and we weren't really happy with the candidates.
For engineering aid?
And two of the people on the list were already employed by us. So,
For engineering aid?
well, yes,
Okay, so that item is open, or no?
That's correct, that's still an open item.
that's open, I didn't put it on the list.
This
Oh.
is, the draft person is in addition to the engineering aid.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Why is it not on your list?
Because usually the engineering aid works through our department, since we don't have a,
Engineer.
so we sort of put them under our roof a little bit.
Right,
That's why we got them.
Okay.
We actually, if you can see the jobs we're doing now, paving and jobs that we're doing that engineering used to do, we're doing it now, so we could use the help, really, yeah.
so are you looking for an engineering aid, or?
We've never stopped looking for an engineering
Yeah,
aid.
yeah.
And it's in the budget.
That's like we're
It's in the
looking
budget,
for parking enforcement officer and code enforcement officer. I guess I discussed with there, we're looking for that, but finding the people sometimes is very difficult.
Yeah, it's about finding the right person.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
right, okay.
And
almost
it's almost time for me. Is there, do you have anything else on your list, Mike?
I
think you
have 3 other things on the list. I had my office man, I have an office manager position. My lady in the office, it's a $4,500 increase. She's doing an outstanding job, and she's getting a lot more put on her. But I could like to discuss that with you. And then I want temporary laborers, we arbitrarily cut 25,000, I think it was last year, Richard, of temporary laborers, remember? Temporary labor force, we cut $25,000 out of that last year. So I want to try to get that back, because we have other things we're doing now, that other than cutting grass and mowing lawns, we have to do other things with temporary laborers in the
Okay,
summertime.
right.
Okay. And then I have an MEO, grade that I want to do, we have an MEO, but I want to make him an MEO for $3,700, and he can train other guys under him to do MEO work, because we have one heavy equipment operator. And we need a backup. That's just
MEO is,
What's in
more
it?
equipment operator.
oh, okay.
And there's an ATO.
It should be actually heavy.
Yeah,
Heavy
but
equipment.
They have MEO 4, so I don't.
So this would allow training for an individual who's on board?
Yes.
It creates him, it puts that position as a supervisory position, they can train at a lower level. We have the MEO, we don't have to be currently have, which is just the truck driver. And also any of the maintenance positions, maintenance 2 positions eligible to operate equipment, but we don't really have a trainer to do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike and Mike. Mike, I don't know how, obviously, we didn't get through all of the infrastructure, which I don't think we anticipated we were going to.
I have a plan for that, and let's discuss it during the reports by city offices.
Okay,
I'll
great.
explain it, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
you're welcome.
I said one
And
thing
good
for-
job,
Sure,
Peter.
Kevin.
Thank you so much.
There was just a comment, just for Public Works. Obviously, this list shows on the daily basis. All the time. And, you know, I'm very appreciative, and I know that you guys work extremely hard. But in the nearly 5 years that I've been on the council, I don't think we have ever like disrespected any of your initiatives that you're working on, or blatantly come out and said, you know, that you know, we think that you know, ideas that you have are horrible. So I guess I just appreciate the same courtesy in the future. How you started out your.
Oh, yeah, well, I want to make a point, so I do.
Yeah, well.
Because that's a big point. Roadside garbage
That's editorial.
makes the city look really bad. And I understand
Oh,
I understand your thing about straws, I do, I really appreciate you doing that.
Well, you obviously, you don't, or you wouldn't have said something like
You
that.
called it
Well,
bullshit.
you know, and then.
You did.
Well, because
And I think that, I just wanna say that I will never disrespect you.
I don't disrespect anybody here.
You did, so,
Well, I'm sorry about this.
okay, thank you.
Okay, fine.
I guess you made your point.
Thank you.
There was a way to do it,
That was a way.
but that might not have been the
You can use
way.
our rainbow sidewalks, or crosswalks if you want.
Okay,
Please adjourn.
thank you. Meeting, motion to adjourn? Counselor McFarland, second. Counselor Kelly?
No, it has to be.
Yes.
Just,
Oh, just, that's right, just our committee, second. All in favor?
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, and I'd like to now begin tonight's meeting of the Common Council with the Pledge of Allegiance.
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong?
Here.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Dowdle?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor McFarland?
Present.
Counselor Kretzer?
Here.
I'd like to begin with just a couple of comments. First of all, the last week, our Battle of Plattsburgh proceedings came along wonderfully. I don't think Tara Powers is here today, but I certainly thank her, and I thank all of her group, her department and assistants, and all the DPW staff that worked so hard for it, all the police officers, including some in shorts that were out there this weekend working on, and the firefighters that helped out, and everybody, MLD helped out, just but everybody came together and put on a really great event. I'm really proud of everybody, and I don't think it could have come off any better. So I'm very, very pleased. It's wonderful for us to see our sister city in Cobourg, Ontario come down in full force again too and put on a wonderful concert at the Strand. So just a very good weekend. Tara's a perfectionist. She's got all kinds of ideas of what she wants to do next year to make it bigger and better and hopefully even less expensive too, and with more revenue being generated too. She's got many ideas. Her biggest, just to give you a little anecdote, her biggest fund grantor, a local business, came up to me and said, I don't want Tara coming and asking for any money this year because she's already got it. She's got to spend much more time on other people because we're so impressed with the quality of the work that that's an automatic as far as we're concerned. So I'm very proud of everybody and thanks everybody for coming together, making a great event. And then we just got the Mayor's Cup back for the North Stars football team. You may have read in the newspaper, they won their championship, so we'll have a little gathering on behalf of them as well for our local football team. So I want to just give a little shout out to them. Thank you, that's it.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on September 6, 2018 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Kretzer and second by Councillor Ensel. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments for the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending September 12, 2018 in the amount of $448,711.11 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn in the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Armstrong, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You have the reports in your packet. Can I ask for any additional reports? Begin with governance, strategy, and city operations. Councillor Kretzer.
We had our monthly meeting last week prior to the council meeting. We had reports from the city clerk regarding the website and improvements there. Also, Community Development Director Matthew Miller gave an updated report on the proposed City of Plattsburgh parking system, which was made part of the minutes of the meeting. Then we moved a number of resolutions. The survey regarding plastic straws and plasticware will be on the website until the 30th of this month. So we're encouraging residents, taxpayers, food vendors to take the survey so that we're able to use those findings to help us make a decision about how to move forward. Councillor Armstrong, is there anything else you can think of?
You continue to work on your Open Gov.
Yes, on Monday we're meeting with Open Gov, and that'll be a continuation of the conversation into whether that kind of software will serve us.
City infrastructure, Council Ansel.
Well, we just finished our monthly meeting. We agreed to move 7 items forward out of committee onto tonight's agenda. We learned that Veterans Lane work continues. Cornelia Street hopefully will be coming up next. And we also learned that should the funding be available, that work will take place on Lower Boynton Avenue. And then at that point, we began our budget discussions, and we heard from DPW.
Thank you. We did. Finance and Budget, Councilor Kelly.
Well, following Councilor Ensel's explanation of his budget hearing today, I will follow up and say that great job, Peter. And I'm kind of a control freak, and it makes me nervous when other people do things that I think are my responsibility. but I think this is going to work out really good. I really like the participation and the democracy that's taking place here. So I think it's going to be okay. But Councilor Ensel was concerned that he didn't have enough time to finish with all his infrastructure departments. So I'd like to recommend that he continue next week. Finance and Budget, our meeting can happen in just a few minutes, and then we can give you the floor for the rest of the time.
Okay. I think I also want to take from Richard's suggestion as far as looking at, we have normally at our infrastructure committee meetings, we normally have 2, possibly 3 departments, but I know that there are more that are webbed into infrastructure. So I guess I would just like some clarification as to, besides fire and safety, or police and fire, what other departments are going to, the other different committees, or
Well,
the rest?
community development.
Community development will be with governance?
And it will also embrace recreation and clerk's office.
So I guess in other words, besides police and fire, everything else will come under infrastructure?
Under community development, under governance.
Governance?
Right.
Right.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
At one time, under infrastructure, we included the computing.
Right, IT.
And IT.
Right.
Since we're doing that in more of a distributed way now, we could probably discuss that during the actual finance committee or the governance committee, one of those two, unless you felt like you wanted to take that one up.
Right. And so, you know, it's a little bit more unwieldy to organize because of the way we're structured here. And maybe as the week progresses, I would like to offer some suggestions I have about how to organize, and maybe we can kind of collaborate on that. And you know, in the past, I think we've had some schedules, and that might help. So, you know, you and I will talk.
But I want to be fair also to the various departments, that if we're expecting them to
that's why a schedule's nice, because then you can give them a heads up about what we'd like and when we'd like it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else from Councillor Kelly?
No.
Public Safety, Councillor Dowell?
Yeah, no updated information.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Councillor Armstrong?
No.
And MLD, Councillor McFarland?
No updates at this time.
Resolved, the reports as listed are hereby ordered, received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councillor Ensel, second by Councillor Kretzer. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. There's no correspondences or recommendations from boards at this time.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending September 14th, 2018 in the amount of $1,683,417 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kelly and seconded by Councillor Dowell. Discussion?
I do have a question. Before me, I have a purchase order that I did have questions on. Would that come into this section?
When would you ask that question?
Would it be now or at the end?
Would be
or-
appropriate, or?
No? It's probably not
Yeah,
tied
I mean,
into this
The
dollar
way
figure.
our agenda setup is not, but with the indulgence of the mayor's presiding officer, that would probably make the most sense.
Please.
Okay, just have a purchase order from the police department for the monthly cost of janitorial services. It's quite a figure. This money was not budgeted and cannot come out of the asset seizure funds. This service has been neglected since January in the situation. There needs to be funded transferred from another source since the budgeted funding was taken out of the general fund budget. And the figure is for $10,500.
So that's on the purchase order, what you just read?
Yes.
Oh,
So I'm,
That's what the account number used for that was in the asset seizure fund.
there is an account number, but I'm not familiar with it.
1312,
1000.
yeah, the one at the end of the 1312 indicates it's coming out of the asset seizure fund.
Is it? Is it?
That's what should not. That's what that account indicates. So whoever selected the account,
I'm sorry?
whoever selected that account must have made a mistake there.
Because I wouldn't think from what I know, janitorial services. asset
would come
seizure
out of it,
funds.
right?
Be normal operating.
Well, what can come out of the asset seizure funds?
Technology, upgrades.
Equipment.
vehicles.
Conference.
Yep.
Not janitorial services.
Right, let's hear what can't, yeah.
Before anything's processed against that for payment, that'll have to be correct.
So it's-
I noticed that today when I was going through the purchase orders, that was being charged as asset seizure, so I figured that would come up as a question.
So historically, it hasn't been because it can't be, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So,
That must be an error on our end.
Okay.
The line.
all right, so are we gonna leave this alone then?
Well, that account number's gonna have to be corrected on that purchase order, first of all, it can't be
Okay.
charged there.
So,
Next of all, I guess your question was, where is it gonna be budgeted
Charged.
From.
taken out from?
yeah. And what's that decision going to be, or will that have to be discussed?
We had discussed, and the thought was to take it out of payroll for budgeted payroll that will not be used as a result of resignations and some retirements. So we do have some excess that would afford us to move from payroll to the contracted services line.
So that goes from January to now, or would this be?
I
Just for
believe
the
that was
remainder
for
of
the
the year.
remainder of the year, and that was for the start of September, and we would have to start in October, so that figure would be less.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you.
So may I recommend as we rewrite that PO to avoid any editorializing in the description,
Yeah.
if we could.
Or jam it up, so to speak. Okay. All right. Is that what we're saying? Okay, all right.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity for the public to please come forward and address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight. There will be another public comment period for other issues of mutual concerns. It's just for the agenda items tonight. Seeing none, let's continue, please.
Resolved that
I'd
according
like to
to
make a motion to waive the reading and move resolutions 7A through 7F, as well as travel requests 8A as they come with recommendations from the committee. And with the council's indulgence, if you don't have any questions on G, we could include that as well, or we could do that separately.
I think we should separate
Separately?
that.
All right, so then a motion to waive the reading and move resolutions 7A through F, as well as 8A.
Moved by Councillor Kretzer, seconded by Councillor Dowdle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the items themselves.
Yes, Chief, what is the, you weren't at the committee meeting, what is the meaning of the 2018 Impact User Training Conference? What's the point of that?
Yeah, sorry for submitting it out of our designated committee. This was a training that became available only recently, and we had to submit for it. We're in the midst of a massive upgrade to our records management system, and this will afford our one person the training available to facilitate that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council hereby amends the police department and fire department management compensation resolution adopted by common council on September 6, 2018 as follows. Paragraph 4 shall be amended to replace.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the
entirety as
reading and move the
follows.
resolution.
Oh, I'd like to hear it.
Oh, you want to hear it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Paragraph 4 shall be amended to replace in its entirety as follows. Number 4, notwithstanding the above, this resolution shall not result in the reduction of the salary and benefits, including clothing allowances, sick leave payouts, health insurance, employer contribution to, or payments of insurance or welfare benefits and employer contributions to pension or annuity funds of any person currently occupying the titles of police captain, police chief, and/or fire chief. Overtime, holiday, and shift differential pay, leave time, or accumulated compensatory time shall not be considered as salary, benefits, or other compensation.
Moved by Councilor Kretzer and second by Councilor Dowdle. Discussion.
Well, am I looking at this has to deal with the resolution we passed last week?
Yes.
Just cleaning up the language, I guess.
So the purpose of last week's police department and fire department management pay scale was to resolve imbalances within the pay scale hierarchy. The purpose of that section 4 was to basically grandfather or enshrine in the fact that current management in those departments would not see a reduction. Inadvertently, upon applying it, with Chamberlain, the chiefs, the mayor's office, and our special labor council, certain benefits were not memorialized. So the purpose of this limited amendment is just to correct that.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business and councilor reports?
Well, I'll just say that I asked if I could meet and speak with DPW department heads, Mike Brody and Michael Brissett, and they, along with our corporate counsel, met with me regarding some of the questions that have surfaced as a result of the work on Upper Main Road. And we had a nice conversation, and I'm planning a meeting with Lake Country Village residents as well as West Shore Village residents, and they have very nicely agreed that they could attend to supply some of the more detailed answers to questions that I probably couldn't answer. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business or council reports at this time?
Counselor Armstrong, Dowdle, and I met yesterday to begin reviewing the managerial compensation and department head compensation package.
And we've come up with a draft, but we're still deliberating. But we hope to make rapid progress.
Yes.
And I think, hopefully a couple of us can sit down with the mayor and also just review our ideas. Are we looking forward to a goal, or shall we set one, or about when we want to roll it out?
Next week.
Next week.
Next
Okay.
Thursday.
Thank you. Any other new business and council reports? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the public to please come up and address the council on any issues of mutual concern. Please state your name and address, and I know you.
Ira Bargo, I live at 62 Club Road.
And I'm just here to talk a little about the budget process that you're starting. I took a look at the budget that you have online, and frankly, I'm not familiar with all the abbreviations that you have on these lines, so it makes it difficult for a layperson to look at your budget and understand some of the information that's in there. And I would request that as you develop this budget, that you look at providing some kind of budget narrative, not just the numbers. That if it's DPW, here's DPW, and this is kind of what they do. You know, here's where we're looking at adjusting DPW, how that's going to impact the budget, and the cost of that. And something simple, not a long, long narrative, but so that if I'm interested in garbage collection in the city of Plattsburgh, and why the city is running it versus contracting with Casella or something, there's something that you have in here that here's what we're doing for garbage collection, and here's the cost of that, and you know, the city revenue that it receives from that. That's hard to find, frankly, in the budget process when I look at it. So some kind of a narrative process that gives that information in a way that I could cite in on something that I might want to come back here and talk in more detail about, or give you my 2 cents about it. And then the second one is that I would appreciate, since we had last year the New York State Comprehensive Review, the pretty substantial report, and parts of that I think moved forward by the mayor and the council. I'd love to hear a little bit as you're looking at the budget going forward, are we tackling more of these issues that were identified by the State Comprehensive Report? Or is there progress on that, or have you moved away from that and you're looking at some other set of strategies? That was a pretty substantial effort that was made, I think, to assist the council in looking at where they ought to be focusing their agenda. And the last is, you know, there's a set of activities that were in that report that I'm interested in, the 911 dispatch services, and I mentioned that to the police a week ago. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but you know that it is hard for a taxpayer in the city and the county, because we pay it in both, to know that the county operates a 911 dispatch system for everybody but the city, and the city spends $350,000 for a 911 dispatch system. And it just seems to me that the county ought to be taking over the 911 dispatch system. That's my simplistic approach, but I know it's more complicated, or it would have been done last year, but it'd be helpful to understand on some of these, if they're not going to go forward, why? So that if I want to write it to the paper and blast the county legislature, I'll do that, you know, but, or I'll go talk to Chris and other people over in the legislature about it. Those are just a few of the things I think would really help me and probably other people in the city understand more detail about what you're wrestling with. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And I can, I think, address some of those. As you know, the budget was less aspirational than we probably can afford, but it doesn't mean that we can't still look at things we can do. And I know Councilor Armstrong and I both very much agree on having some sort of better way to report out the budget, not only to the public, but certainly a lot of the open gov part of what you're exploring is for better transparency for the public, but also even internally, that we need as a management tool to truly understand all the various costs. And to give you an example, when we're looking at some of the budgeted items, for instance, on those lists that were on the screen, we don't include directly in those individual budgets things like healthcare costs, other post-employment benefits, primarily retirement healthcare costs, etc. But they are, and they're somewhere else in the budget. But it'd be really nice to know, using as another example, I know you all feel very strongly about if a lot of your workers are working on an event for Battle of Plattsburgh, that's kind of coming out of your budget and not the Battle of Plattsburgh budget. So we need to figure out processes so we truly understand what these things cost, and they're not hidden and very difficult to dig up and find. So that's part of what the Open Gov initiative will hopefully provide us with. And just very shortly on the police dispatch, police dispatch actually perform quite a bit broader level of service than just dispatch. With an urban police force, we need an urban police station that's accessible. The doors open 24 hours a day, and those dispatchers are essentially that line of contact with our public. And we did ask the county if they'd be willing to work with us in aggregating dispatch, but provide it at our facility, so we have that urban police station feel, and obviously they couldn't. At the same time as our dispatch services taking on additional duties, we envision our police dispatchers being the first point of contact on a variety of different issues on behalf of the city, including things like, why is that mattress sitting in front of my neighbor's yard for so long? And some of the issues with regard to sidewalks, and assist our code and building inspector's office in minor code violations, not just police functions, but quality of life functions too. And I know our police chief feels very strongly about quality of life issues. He subscribes to this broken windows philosophy that a lot of it begins on a lot of more personal pride in our community. And we view our dispatchers as a service that can help with that too. So again, it's we have to dig deeper to often understand what these line items mean, and I'm very hopeful that OpenGov can really help us with that kind of transparency. Some of you know that Mr. Barbell is also assisting you and your citizens committee on finance, and we really need to keep reinvigorating. We need to invigorate that again too, because we get an awful lot of really good ideas and good conversations, and we kind of look at all these numbers when our eyes become very squinty after a while looking at them. To have somebody come in and looking at them with fresh eyes and asking hard questions, I think is a really important thing. So I appreciate all your comments. Any other members of the public like to come forward and help us out a little bit here? Please come on forward.
I'm only here today because I'm having a lot of trouble. I live on Saley Avenue. People run that stop sign all the time. Miller Street, they run, I almost got hit here. A car from Vermont came flying across. Unfortunately, I do metal, and my gate was open. The police came, and I was in a hurry that day. And I said, didn't you see the sign?
Yep.
And I probably called the police. And the other problem is there a way, when you try to make a turn to go left, because I live on Saley Avenue, during the evening, people are coming from work.
Left where?
Go over the bridge. I'm going to,
Oh.
you stop right here, stop sign.
And also, which intersection on Saley with a stop sign?
Right where
Durand.
it's at the end of the road.
Okay.
As you go over the bridge, you see it.
Delord, you mean?
People run that sign all the time. I even see police officers run it. They put their lights on. They can get away with it because they're the law. I understand that. Maybe they're on a call. I don't know. But what I'm getting fed up with is the college kids on the skateboards and the rollerblades and the bicycles. The other night, I almost got one. It would have been a hood order. I said, didn't you see? And they don't care. Give them a ticket. Make them learn. You know, something needs to be done. You need a light out here where this section is. Someone's going to get hurt, and it's going to be all over. It's just like the town of Plattsburgh, up there where Lombard is. They don't seem to care. That they should wait for someone to get killed. I don't want to do that, because I had to pull off the road. I have anxiety and depression. These college kids have no respect for you. They're rude, they're disrespectful. And you know, one of them's gonna wind up as a hood order. I had to pull off the road. I said, thank you, Jesus, I didn't hit anybody. They don't care, there's no reflector tape, they ride skateboards, they're all over the place. And the needles that I see downtown when I go out, that needs to be cleaned up too. Get these drug dealers off the street. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, and I know you shared with us an email this week, which we shared
Yes.
with the police department as well.
And I'm not here to cause any trouble.
No.
It's just that I have anxiety and depression. My daughter's a drug dealer, she's in prison. And they're letting these bums get out of jail. Why are they getting out? Because they're snitching on people. And they're back on the street, they're gonna do it again.
Sure.
That's all I have to say. And like I said, I'm not here to start trouble.
Oh, I know.
But I don't want to hit a kid, because I would have to, I'd be in the nut ward.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone called me. It was nice meeting you, and I'm sorry I went on and on.
It's all right.
I'm fed up with it.
It's all right.
Get rid of these do something with these kids. Instead of driving around in a cruiser all day, and there's another thing is the cell phone. I saw that too. And the police officers, they do pull them over, and we'll give them credit for that, if they feel like doing the paperwork.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we should, as part of the DRI and other discussions we've had, we do want to work on more traffic calming in the downtown area. We know this is Route 9. We know a lot of people just simply want to get from one end of the city to the other as quickly as possible, and they go down Saley or Miller or Cumberland Avenue to do it. If we could somehow divert them to go along Route 22, if their only goal is just get in and out of the city as quickly as possible, they shouldn't be doing it so quickly in our neighborhoods
Most
downtown.
of your traffic, the people are coming home from work, and they're coming off of Bridge Street. And there's been
Don't even
plenty of
stop there,
times
yeah.
where I will not, I'll go around the other way now.
Right.
Because I don't want to hit somebody.
Yeah.
You know, I just want these college kids, this isn't their town. They need to get it together. And I'm fed up with it.
Thank you.
So I have to say thank you.
Thanks for coming.
We could also note that Chief Rasco of the SUNY Police Department has been brought to this attention as well.
A former city police officer too, so he has a good appreciation for this issue. We couldn't have a better representative than SUNY Police. And this is something that our chief believes very strong on. The gentleman raised the opioid and heroin issue, and we all know how that's a terrible problem. And we also believe that more community policing is probably going to help that out, and the broken windows philosophy of just tidying up our downtown a little bit and having a higher profile downtown. It might display some of this crime somewhere else, but it's dangerous when it concentrates all in one place. So these are things we're working on.
The littering issue's been brought up a few times this meeting.
Any other issues the public would like to address with the council tonight?
Okay.
Seeing none, do I have a, Joe's coming up.
Joe Lotemplio, I just wanted to let you know that after 33 years at the Press Republican, I am leaving. Tomorrow's my last day.
It is.
This is my last council meeting.
Whoa.
So I want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and mayor and councilors before you, Dean and Beth, for all your help over the years. Department heads, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed my job, and it's just time to move on to do something else. So thank you all for your help and cooperation, and all the best.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. All right, best of luck. Thank you.
Hey, maybe you've got a role in city government from here on.
I don't think Saranak's a city.
You can always move. Any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor McFarland. Roll call, please.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly? Yes. Counselor Dowell?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Spencer?
Yes. Thank you, folks, for a great meeting.
Take it over.
Hey, Mike.
Mike. So we may
Beth, can I give you this? Because I'm not sure.
I'll give it back to me.
Okay. You can probably come forward.
Thank you. Oh, shoot, I got
Oh, yeah.